Welcome to Different Walks, Different Talks.
In religion class, what do we have? So first we talked about how they were making. Okay, so first Michael G. Actually, I remember this. Are you bored?
Nah, go.
Okay. So Michael G. talked about there's companies that harvest the sunlight now. So there's like solar.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you were there at that time. So there's satellites now, right? And
Yeah.
there's this whole company that has big mirrors, and they're like, we'll give you free sunlight. The sun will hit the mirror on the satellite, and the light will shine down.
Yeah, no.
And then we talked about how this is actually cool technology to help solar panels right now. So a lot of solar panels are in places where at night there's no sun, right?
Yeah.
So at nighttime they still have sunlight. And then we also talked about how solar panels is actually bad for the environment in some sort of bigger sense. If you look at it from a really global sense, that there are shrubs growing on the solar panels now, and it's kind of removing desert ecosystems that should be there. And then that's when I did some research on this, and I stumbled upon this Ivy Business article, Ivy Business by Western Ivy. I was really surprised. They talked about agrivoltaic farming.
Yeah.
So like farms now want to grow their crops under solar panels. What do you think about this whole concept?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I don't know.
Yeah?
Like from what you sent me, I mean, it sounds great.
The article sounded great.
Yeah.
The article
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Find the article if you can. It was published by Western University, right?
Right.
By an Ivy Business student.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super neat concept, I think. Right. So the idea is, I think, often people are kind of conflicted about land usages, right? Like, because, for example, well, some places in the world, in Canada, right, might be good for farming because they have like a lot of, like nutrients in the soil, right, and a lot of like good sunlight, right? But that land might be allocated to solar farms, right? Mm-hmm. Or there might be talk of that. So people get worried.
I see. Right.
I think that's what they said in the article, right? And so there's talk about whether this area should be used for solar farming or agriculture, right? And agrivoltaic farming kind of combines these two things really well. So I think the article opened with talking about trampolines in the backyard. Like if you're on a trampoline or some shaded area in a backyard, you'll find that grass grows a lot better there.
I have actually seen that, yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's neat. Yeah, it's a good way to open it. And that's because essentially like the shade
actually helps the plant to grow.
Yeah, some plants.
Sounds kind of contradictory,
It does. Yeah, but I guess
think chlorophyll and sunlight.
Right.
Well,
the article goes later describing some plants just do better in like next to sunlight conditions, especially a lot of the grass that we plant in our backyard.
Yeah.
And additionally, like if you have an area like a trampoline that covers up this area of your backyard, it creates a microbiome, like a microclimate, right? Where things like humidity, sunlight, weather conditions are controlled a lot better than if you're just leaving them out in the open.
Yeah.
Like protects against like erosion, super heavy rain, beating like sunlight, right? So plants actually some plants grow like a lot better underneath shaded environments, right? So someone had the idea to install solar panels over large like swaths of farmland, right? And crops to have this great effect on the plants to grow faster, right? And at the same time generate solar electricity, right? Because
it just seems kind of too good to be true. This idea.
It does, yeah.
Of combining
there's some sort of caveat that has to,
it hasn't been talked about. Yeah. There's some sort of side effects, right?
Surely, right?
Right.
But the article talked about all these great uses, right? China is using solar panels to push bak their deserts, right?
Right. To help the shrubs grow in the desert, to push back desertification.
Yeah.
You don't want it.
Yeah. And like especially in Canada, where this article was published, two big things that are talked about a lot is food, especially because food prices are quite high, especially in areas up north.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Have to grow food up there.
Energy as well, right? Like I think generally we're pretty clean, but there's big talk about oil out in like the tar sands in Alberta, right? And whether that should be like what Canada uses or just talk about where we get our energy from, right? And how we can manage being like this top exporter of oil while like remaining green as a country. And the answer, it seems, would lie in solar panels, especially with agrivoltaics, right? The answer to both of these questions, where do we get our food? Where do we get our energy?
Yeah.
Here you go, There was some statistic that I think less than 1% of Canada's land could be accountable for 25% of our electricity.
Wow.
Right? If we
use this agrivoltaic.
Yeah.
Is that what oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So it sounds really amazing.
It does.
It does.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. I just see the statistics right here.
Yeah.
Less than 1% of Canadian land would be sufficient to support over 25% of the country's electrical energy needs using this system.
No, it sounds great.
Yeah.
I suppose, okay, the issues might lie in just things you wouldn't expect. Like we were talking about
this whole thing I'd never expected, growing crops under solar panels.
Well, because it's unintuitive, right? You're blocking sun from crops and they're going to grow better.
And you'll never, normally when we think of solar panel, first thing we think of is the only thing bad about solar panel as a clean energy is it takes so much land.
Yeah.
And it takes away from cropland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow, and now it's a benefit.
Some symbiotic
It's literally crazy. Yes.
Yeah, it's super cool. But I think we talked about this in religion, right? Before this article was even brought up. What is it?
Like Amazon and stuff. Like the whole climate cycle may get affected.
There's a lot
of solar panels.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about putting solar panels into Sahara, right? And helping to generate wealth for countries in Western Africa, as well as leaching them off of fossil fuels, right? But a big argument that is used, right, is that it disrupts this whole chain between the Amazon rainforest and the Sahara Desert, and how they kind of rely on each other, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the Amazon rainforest needs that part of Africa to be dry,
right?
Because all this dust from the Sahara in a cycle comes over to the Amazon rainforest,
and even the oceans as well. Some of the ocean ecosystems do need the nutrients that were there, the vitamins and like iron and stuff.
Yeah, well, think about sand is just really small rocks. They're just really small rocks.
Yeah,
it's a process of erosion over millions and millions of years, breaking all these rocks and minerals down into little beads.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of good things in sand that plants and animals need. Right, indirectly or directly. So when the sand gets carried over through winds and the ocean to the Amazon, it actually helps growth and biodiversity in that part of the world. Right? And you wouldn't really think that. Once again, it's like this.
Yeah, and if you put solar panels, the main problem is that these solar panels might grow shrubs, right? And then shrubs will grow, it'll trap the sand. Yeah. It's going to disrupt this global cycle.
Yes.
And if this goes, maybe the fear is, in like a long time, the Amazon becomes like the Sahara Desert. That's the biggest picture. Just like big, like global things that you wouldn't think about.
Yeah,
right?
and poor change, right? It's something that you don't really want to meddle with.
Yeah,
right. I suppose.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the fear, because I don't know how much is known about the effects that it might have.
Yeah,
as well.
It's kind of hard to like test. It's so big. It's the whole globe.
Yeah, because and maybe this is why this is delayed a little bit. It's kind of like opening Pandora's box. Yeah, right? You could just...
You need a couple years to see the effects.
Yeah, you could make a huge government investment, right? And put like, 1,000 acres of solar panels, maybe more, right? In like Saskatchewan or something, right? But who knows? Maybe like 50 years after that...
Something happens somewhere
else in the world or Canada, and it messes things up. And
I guess it's a pessimistic view of it.
You just have to consider these things. Right. In science, you're not trying to prove yourself right. You're trying to prove yourself wrong. You have to think about all these things.
Right. You should. Yeah. You should.
Yeah.
But I feel like the fear is a lot of selfish governments, even if they know about this big effect
as well.
There's still gonna be race about putting up the solar panels, just for their own country.
And think about
everyone's like that.
Think about how large the industry is for like fossil fuels.
Right. They have a monopoly on that already, like oil prices. Like
who has a monopoly?
Like Saudi Arabia companies? And like the oil, like all those places where they generate basically the global oil.
Yeah.
I remember in Egypt, I had a scroll on like the business newspaper. A lot of people had $1 billion companies.
Yeah.
Oil.
I wouldn't say it's all about like monopolies in the oil sector though. It's more just like there's monopolies in the energy sector, right?
Yeah,
like they're scared that solar panels, right, if they become widely available and our main source of energy, are going to drive away their business, right, and lower their oil prices. Right. So there's a lot of resistance from them.
What do you think? Sorry to cut you off.
Sure. No, good.
What do you think about some like
costs of installing a lot of solar panels, and what type of like issues there is with just installing these and putting in the shrubs and stuff?
What I've heard is they've gotten very cheap, you know?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, cheap and efficient, right? Like, I think, solar panels were a cool gimmick, like back in the 70s or whenever they started to become a thing.
Yeah.
Right? But they were bulky, they didn't generate enough electricity, they were expensive to use. And so a lot of people have this idea built into their head that solar panels are
a gimmick.
They're a gimmick, yeah.
For clean energy that will never work out.
Yes.
Right.
But what I think a lot of researchers have done in the past few years or decades have really improved on this formula and gotten a lot better at making solar panels. So now solar panels are a very viable energy source, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
At least it seems to us, yeah.
Yeah, from the outside. And I think that's scaring big energy companies. Although what I'm hearing, I don't know where I heard this, like a lot of like the oil empires in the Middle East and stuff are starting to turn to green energy, right?
That does make sense, though. They have a lot of money accumulated, right? And they want to put in investment so they keep making money in the future. So I guess that makes sense because oil is, we all know, unsustainable energy. It's going to run out at one day, right?
Yes, of course.
So I guess they want to pivot.
Well, they're fossil fuels, right? We don't have an infinite supply.
Yeah, no.
And I mean, like...
We have to pivot at one point.
Yeah.
They have to.
Like, not everybody who owns oil companies is this, like, nearsighted old idiot, right?
Exactly.
Who thinks, well, screw the environment, I'm just going to make much money.
Yeah, no.
Right? Like, there are concerns.
They have kids and stuff like
they
that.
They have kids. They have families, right? Some of them are young.
And they're educated. So they know what to do in the future. They have some sort of plan, right?
Right. Like, I think
they know the global trend.
Yeah, it's no secret right now that things are pretty dire in the environmental area, right? Yeah. And so I think energy companies are seeing this and they're starting to move towards greener energy, right? Yeah. Like, that's where a lot of the investments are. China, in fact, right? Like, they still
China have invested a lot in EV cars and stuff, right?
And solar panels. Think about what we just talked about.
Solar panels as well. I haven't done my research too much, but I think they have put a lot of money in that as well. Like,
well, of course, like, they're still the highest carbon emissions donors in the world. Yeah. But, proportionate to population is very low, right? And it's getting lower as they start to move to green energy. India, the same, So it looks more hopeful than it has in the past little while, I think. Yeah.
So do you think farms should embrace this technology? After this one article, of course we're not well versed.
No, I think it sounds great. Yeah, absolutely. If they have the money and they have the resources to do so,
they should set it up.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. They could even profit off the energy on their farm.
Yeah, no, that's another thing they talked about, right?
Right.
Well, like, I mean, not a lot of people want to be farmers, I feel, as they grow up.
No, it's a hard trade.
It is a hard trade.
It's maybe the hardest trade, I feel like.
Well, maybe
like a farm.
Yeah, like maybe this will encourage people, right?
Yeah.
More money involved in it.
Right. Yeah. Because you're not just making like crops; you're also getting energy generation now. So it's a mix now.
Yeah, for sure. And then there'd be more food,
more profitable, and honestly, if you're putting in more solar panels, you want to grow more crops. It seems like too good to be true of a positive cycle.
What else does a country need to grow? Food, energy.
Yeah, that's what a country needs, right? Pretty much. Yeah. This is pretty crazy. And I don't think that's the thing with windmills right now. I don't think there's any windmill crops that benefits each other or nuclear crops.
Yeah, well, I think the issue with windmills that I've heard, or wind turbines, right?
Yeah.
Are that they're just too big. Like, they can't
they're big, they're ugly, and
they're loud.
I hate to quote Donald Trump, but he said that all the windmills, like there's windmill graveyards because they rust out and stuff.
I'm not going to listen to anything he says.
And then they need to put them somewhere.
I don't know about that, right? But what I have heard, right?
Yeah, but that sounds like...
It's just, like, you kind of...
Does it make a lot of noise as well, I think?
Yeah, right. Very noisy.
Kills all the birds.
Yeah, you don't want to live near windmills, right? It's a problem for birds. I'm sure there's something with wind currents that I don't know. But...
messes with birds, I know that, and bats.
Yeah,
definitely bats.
Yeah, I feel like there's a disruption, there's a plateau that they reach in efficiency.
Yeah,
because you can't build them past a certain length. Like, I think it's just that like facilities can't manufacture turbine wings that are that large. Trucks can't move them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's hard to even transport this stuff. Whereas solar panels are like this table is like thing. It's easy to like stack up to.
Even still, they're modular, right? You can just take little ones like that and build them into larger ones. Yeah. Solar panels are a lot more versatile, and it seems like arguments against green energy, right? Nuclear, obvious, right? Like Chernobyl, right? Do you want
Yeah, a lot of people like us, like we think it's so much energy, right? But no one wants to live next to a nuclear power plant, obviously, right?
It's not necessarily true. I think a lot of the older generation.
So? I think I'm still kind of scared of nuclear power plants.
I'm
live
not as
next
much.
To one. I think I am.
Okay, yeah.
I think I am. I'm just Homer Simpson and all those three-eyed. It's just kind of built into me. I'm kind of scared still.
But I feel like that's more like I don't know. It almost feels like propaganda.
Right. I get
first of all, a lot of people.
There are a lot of propaganda that was fueled by oil companies to get rid of nuclear energy.
Yeah.
So that is true, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it did work for me because I am still scared of that stuff.
Well, there's a lot of stuff working against it. It's the propaganda from oil companies. I also think during the Cold War, like Russia invested a lot into nuclear, right? And that was scary to people.
Right. Yeah.
And scary to the U.S. government because
as soon as you hear nuclear, you think end of the world.
Yeah.
That's just two things that go hand in hand.
And if you were born like sometime before Chernobyl, then you think Chernobyl.
Yeah, right. Or like Japan had a lot of nuclear horror stories. Yeah, even the 2 bombs that dropped. Like,
yeah. There's a negative association with nuclear power, right? But I feel like that's kind of unfair, especially now that there have been a lot more safety measures.
I feel like we should pivot to that like sooner.
Anyway, arguments against hydroelectric, it dislocates a lot of
Yes, I have one quick story. My old science teacher back in New Zealand, he drove past a dam.
Yep.
Bloody rivers, he said, because the eels in New Zealand just all got chopped up by like this local dam.
Yeah, well, you also have to flood a lot of land to create a dam, right?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And like it dirties up the water, right?
Yeah, it disrupts the whole river flow, right?
It disrupts the whole ecosystem.
And we're using that as clean energy, so...
Yeah, and it's not quite clean energy.
No, it's not quite.
Right?
It's just sustainable energy.
Yeah, and then we just talked about the windmills, right? How they can't, sustain, or it's not as sustainable as we thought.
Yeah, it's not as nice and efficient.
And I suppose, like, what's the argument against solar panels? Like,
I guess
it's maybe the land that it takes up.
The land that it takes up, and maybe like when you replace solar panels, there's going to be a lot of a waste, maybe, if they can recycle properly.
Maybe, yeah, it's that. Okay, but either way, half the issue, right?
Yeah.
Is solved with agrivoltaics, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, it looks great for the future.
I feel like this is like a gatekeep business type of idea.
Yeah.
Honestly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just start a farm, drop out of school, and just buy a plot of land.
Buy a plot of land, get a lot of like crops in
Saskatchewan. Let's just buy like half of Saskatchewan's land and become bajillionaires.
Or maybe even be 2 people that pitch these ideas to farmers and then they pay you some sort of money just based on like you giving them this idea. Because I know they did this for fertilizers. So people go around to pitch fertilizers to farmlands.
Yeah.
And they will make a lot of money.
There's been so much innovation in farming, I feel like.
There has. I feel like that's a sector that no one wants to talk about because people really think it's derogatory as to be a farmer in modern society.
There's a lot of stigma.
There's a lot of stigma, right? And I guess I lived a couple of years in New Zealand, so it wasn't as stigmatized. And farmers are like some rich people. Yeah. My tennis coach, her dad grew Wagyu cows.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, Angus beef cows as well. So, a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Yeah. No,
and it's honestly, I have so much respect for them as well because they know so much. Like it's like history, like generational knowledge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I mean, really, farmers have just been more efficient in the past like 100 years. You know the story of like Fritz Haber?
No.
I watched a very Hassan video on this like a while ago. He was this German scientist. Who really solved this huge problem of food production in the world. So, food...
Was it like industrial, where he cramped everything together?
No. Food and plants need nitrogen to grow, right?
Right.
Nitrogen's a key component. Yeah. It's in like proteins, it's in DNA, it's in everything you need. Mm-hmm. But, you can't keep farming... the same plants on the same soil.
Right, because you'll use up the same sort of nutrient and the crops will run out of it.
Yeah, the main problem was you exhaust all the nitrogen, right?
Yeah.
So as people discovered this, right, that you can't farm the same field like infinitely, they started to use different methods to replenish the nitrogen in the ground.
Okay.
A big method of this was guano. Have you heard of guano? Guano is like essentially, it's bird poop, right?
Oh.
Yeah, and... it was a huge thing in like the British, Dutch empires, right? Back in like the 1700s, 1800s.
They just had a load of it?
No, that was the problem. You had to find guano. And a lot of it was like on these islands off the west coast of South America,
What is it? So is it just like a deposit of bird shit that hardened?
Yeah. And birds would
like some sort of fossil fuel thing?
Yeah.
A bird shit.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. Fossil fuel bird shit. on these islands off the west coast of South America.
That makes sense.
And they went crazy over these islands, right? Like these were huge.
So they were like the gold deposits, pretty much.
No, at a certain point, it was worth more than silver, guano.
Really?
Like bird poop. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
a crazy story.
Yes. Anyway, so guano was running out though, because it's not as plentiful as other fossil fuels, right?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
But once guano runs out, food production massively decreases, right?
Okay.
Well, because you need nitrogen to replenish soils. So there was this big issue in how to replenish nitrogen in soil, if not to use guano. And the solution was to try to figure out a way to like isolate nitrogen as a compound and inject it into the soil.
Like some sort of chemical nitrogen, just
you just
like make nitrogen by itself.
You have to make elemental nitrogen.
So did he make that?
It's really hard to, because like think about how strong the bonds are between nitrogen.
I think about chemistry, but okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, very strong bonds between
three valence electrons or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, triple bond.
It's triple bond.
Oh, right. Yeah, the hardest bond, right?
Yes.
The hardest covalent bond.
So it takes a lot of energy to split it.
Yeah.
But he created this method to turn like ammonia, I think.
Oh.
No. He made an ammonia from like something else.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
He figured out a way to put nitrogen in soil, right? And this caused like a crazy agricultural like boom.
Right. It would.
This was only like 100 years ago or so.
Really? Wait, 100 years ago?
Yeah.
That recent, like a generation ago.
Generation's generous, but
80 years old. Like
it's liberal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, a lot of like the big population growth statistics you see. Where,
does it like co-align with his production?
Yeah. Wow. Like I think population, I could be wrong, like almost doubled, right? Like between the time that he created that and the future, just because
I believe you.
There was more food in the world, right? So
more people.
People could have more food and populations could grow, right? Yeah. So huge development in agriculture, right? And it's the reason that farmers can be as profitable as they are now, right? Stay on the same land, and it's very cheap to replenish the soil. Right, or it's cheaper than it was to like import guano, which was, like I said, worth its weight like in silver.
Yeah. One last perspective, I guess, I want to talk about before we end it. I feel like a lot of the times now when we're shopping, right?
Yeah.
We want to shop organic produce.
Yes.
A lot of times we don't trust like the big company produce, pesticides, inject stuff into cows and all of that, right? We love these local farms. I feel like if the local farms here, like in Canada, different countries, right? If they adopt this solar panel just on their small plot of land, it might make their business way more profitable, and you might see maybe more of a turn into like small organic farming. Might be the new trend. That could be a positive thing, right?
Small organic farming? What do you mean?
Like there's more like small organic farms can generate more money, so they're more sustainable, so more people do it. So maybe that could be a positive trend. So when we buy food, we feel safer.
Oh, you know what? Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
I get what you mean.
If this is sustainable to produce the same amount of crops as big farms.
Okay, so you're saying like those farmers who choose to use GMOs and like that sort of thing, non-organic foods.
Yeah.
Right. They'll be able to make up the money lost. Okay, like they're using GMOs, they can reach like a wider audience, right? Cast a wider net, right? And make more money.
No, GMO is genetically modified plants.
So like non-organic.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about organic farmers.
Okay.
I feel like if organic farmers use this, they might become more popular. Like this might be a more popular thing. So organic farms might be.
Let me rephrase it, right? So like organic farmers, right? They have to charge more because it's like they lose more crops because they don't use insecticides and stuff.
Yeah, like that. Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It could make them.
But you're saying that they could reduce prices, right, or become like more
prevalent in the market. Is what I'm saying, which could be a great thing, right?
Because they can make more money off of solar farms. I think I
like that.
Yeah, for sure. I like that idea.
And then negative side, big farms that already have a lot of money, they can implement this in a split second and make them more profitable.
It's true.
So
but I mean, but I guess. I think that would mean less like modified food in the market overall, right?
Why?
Like less.
What do you think? How does this relate to GMOs?
I'm just talking about like non-pesticide food or like pesticide food,
But like solar panels doesn't get rid of.
What's the opposite? Okay, what's the opposite of organic?
GMOs, genetically modified, or just Organic is like you don't use pesticides at all, right?
Right.
Just fruits that use
what's
pesticides.
The opposite? Because I'm just trying to say the opposite of organic.
Oh, I don't know the word for that.
Yeah.
I don't know the word for that. I would just say industrialized. Like
okay,
farm.
then there would be less industrialized farms on the market overall.
Hopefully. Right? Yeah. I guess that's the hopeful thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're good.
Is that yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
How'd you like the... If you vibe with this convo, drop a like, leave a comment, and hit that sub button. We'll catch you next time on Different Walks, Different Talks.